Welcome to Buffalo Gameday Recap, the Christmas edition. AJ came dressed. I missed the memo. Sorry about that, everybody. Thad Brown along with AJ Feldman. Bills get past the Chargers 24-22. It was not the prettiest or easiest of wins. Not nearly as easy as we all thought or expected. But AJ, it's a W, and we've talked about the last couple of weeks. The Bills are kind of surviving in advance right now anyway.
Yeah, they got a win. They needed a win. They got one. It wasn't pretty. It's the type of game where you can almost expect this sort of a quote unquote letdown. They beat the Chiefs. They beat the Cowboys. They're on top of the world. They're hearing everybody's praises. They like to say it doesn't get to them, but they hear that, and they know that they're playing really well, and they're facing a team that has a backup quarterback, just gave up 63 points. It's a short week. You're on the road, going West Coast, primed for a letdown, and it kind of was. But luckily for the Bills, the letdown didn't result in a loss, and they keep chugging on towards the playoffs, and now they officially control their playoff destiny.
And the thing about the end of this game, or at least we'll start with the good side of this, is that there were so many guys who kind of made little gritty plays to get them over the line here. I mean, primarily it's Josh Allen leading the go-ahead field goal drive, but it's Stefon Diggs, who seemed like he was not 100%, making a couple catches on that drive. A little bit Joe Brady. I did like the play they opened that drive with the fake pitch and then throw it to Dawson Knox over the middle. Teams always say, guys always say, in those 2-minute spots, when you get that first down, that's what really gets it going. Well, they had a nice play to get that 2-minute drive rolling. And then on defense, it was, Ed Oliver, the sack. There were a variety of guys. I mean, every single time the Bills kept the Chargers out of the end zone, it added up to where they only needed 3 at the end to win the game. So there were a lot of different pieces. No one was an A+ today, but there were a lot of B+ and Bs that kind of got the Bills, over the line to where you didn't have to rely on Josh Allen to be magnificent to win this game.
Yeah, when I really kind of looked back big picture at this game after it was all said and done, they made the Chargers settle for 5 field goals in this game. That's pretty ridiculous. Their only touchdown drive they gave up was 27 yards. Granted, it's Easton Stick, no Keenan Allen. The offensive line is a mess, et cetera, et cetera. Austin Eckler is, on everybody's fantasy's bench if he was able to get them to the championship game. But still, to bend and not break, to, shore up in the red zone, and, any one of those drives turns into a touchdown, we're talking about a much different situation here. That's quite a performance from a red zone defense that, still had some guys going in and out. Nobody left the game completely, but wasn't, none of those guys were probably at 100%. It's a pretty gritty effort from them.
Give Ed Oliver some credit too. When you talk about all the guys that they had to shuttle in and out, you got to be able to rely on someone. And Leonard Floyd wasn't super in this game, but Oliver was. And when they needed someone to finish the game off, Ed said afterwards, Sean McDermott told them on the sideline before the last drive, we need a sack to end the game. And Oliver's like, I said, okay. And he just went out there and did it. And it was fun to talk to him about the end of the game. If you want to, you can find it on my Twitter feed, Thad Brown 7, where Oliver, or my X feed, where Oliver said that earlier in the game, he had drawn a hold on a move he did on the Chargers center. So he said to himself, okay, I know that works. I'm going to save that for later. And that's what he pulled out on that end of game drive. The same move, beat him again. Ed said he beat the brakes off the guy. And he's not wrong. He owned him there. And, you need players like that to finish games other than Josh Allen, other than, the safeties who've been doing it for a long time on the Bills defense. Carl Jones and I have talked about it for a while. Defensively, you need dudes. And they haven't had dudes show up a lot. They did a couple weeks ago against the Chiefs late, and they did again in this game. And it was the guys up front. It's the point is, the only dudes the Bills really have left are Oliver and Floyd and that defensive line. And they shut down the Chiefs game, and they finished off this one too.
Yeah, the front four wasn't great all night long. They didn't really get a ton of pressure. You saw Sean McDermott have to bring extra guys, which worked for the most part, but did give them in some situations where, you can only cover guys so long when, the pressure doesn't get there. But yeah, I mean, we talk about all these games, 13 seconds, the Eagles games, this, that, and, the other. You just think, man, we just need one play. One play would have got it done. A stop, a squib, et cetera, et cetera. Well, they got it, especially when the other team doesn't have any timeouts. Ed Oliver makes a sack. Congratulations. The game's over. You're flying home with the win. You're at 9-6, and you don't have to chalk this up as the Easton Stick game, the Cameron Dicker game where he hits a 70-yard field goal to win it. There's no name of this game. We just forget it. We move on. And, we got 2 games left in the season.
Offensively, I think is where I get a lot of the negative from this game. I guess you could look at the defense who made Easton Stick look functional and maybe actually pretty decent and complain about that. But the Chargers do have a decent weapon in Eckler and their secondary receivers aren't terrible. To me the offense was the thing that kind of eyebrow raised it to me. In the first half they had 1 drive and 1 lightning strike touchdown to Gabe Davis, so it wasn't like they were moving the ball. And then the big complaint I have in the second half is I thought they hung with James Cook too long. They hung with the running game too long in a game that was very much up for grabs, to where I'm on the sideline thinking, look, Joe Brady, just so you guys need a few plays here. This is where you have 17, take care of it. This is where you have 17, finish it off for you. And I thought they hung with the run a little too long.
What drive are you kind of talking about, or, sequence maybe with the James Cook stuff there?
So certainly the fact they ran it at all in the last drive, I get it. It was a first down after the Dawson Knox play, but I didn't like that one at all. Let me fire up the box score here, because it wasn't just thinking it then. It felt like the run had kind of run its course for late in the second half of this game. Let me go back to the drive before the last one. Well, the drive before that was a fumble. Yeah.
Clearly they stuck with him too long on that drive.
For sure. So I guess we go run for 5, run for 6, called back on the trip, hold, and then that drive is dead. And they scored the touchdown the drive before with a little bit of Cook, but it was mostly throwing the ball. So I guess maybe the feeling didn't match up with what was actually happening there. I guess let me go back and make sure it's just the one play on the last drive. Cook for the run. He had another one on that drive too, so he carried twice on first downs. And both times it put the Bills in a second and long. So then it was running the clock out. So yeah, it wasn't as many snaps as I would have originally thought, to where like, oh, this is terrible. But regardless, I didn't have confidence in the run game winning this for the Bills. I wanted Josh Allen to have the ball, and I thought there were at least 2 or 3 plays at the end there that I would have rather been passes than runs.
Yeah, and certainly just looking at the numbers, James Cook, he carried the ball 20 times, only had 70 yards. It's not good production, especially when you got Josh Allen only throwing the ball 21 times. That's, a ratio where, when it's working against the Cowboys, sure, it's great. Keep running. But, like we all talked about in the past week, they weren't exactly planning on running James Cook that much. It was just working so well. Today, they kind of ran him just as much, and it was not nearly as effective.
And last week's game against the Cowboys was the exception, not the rule. Now, could it become a thing that they rely on more in the future? Sure. And I thought the second touchdown drive was basically all runs. So I think the Bills did prove again in this game that they can go to that as a second option off of, Josh Allen throwing the ball. You can depend on it. But, late in the game, I'd kind of lost my confidence and or interest in the Bills, going that route. Beyond that, let's do the Gabe Davis conversation quick because look, this is who he is. Like that. I'm not gonna. Oh, look, Gabe Davis had 130 yards and a touchdown. He's great. Go to him. No. Look, this is what he's been. He could very easily throw up a 0 again next week. Cool that you have this guy, that he can go 4 of 7 weeks or whatever it is with zeros, and then have this game where he more or less carries the offense for 2/3 of it. Cool, but this is no different than what we've seen from Gabe Davis. This is just Gabe Davis being Gabe Davis, and you got the good version of this game.
No, and I think, we know who Gabe Davis is at this point. I guess now the only real discussion point is kind of what do you do with him in the offseason when you need a wide receiver too? It's a big draft year, but, he's a guy that is important to the offense. Obviously, he's made plays. He's come up big. He's really good in the run game. He blocks really hard. He never leaves the field. But, is this a guy that you want to invest cap dollars in when you don't have a lot of them? Or do you get a rookie wide receiver, have Khalil Shakir up his production and say, hey, Gabe, thanks for the 4 touchdowns against the Chiefs. Have a, great life.
See, Shakir is just not a guy that can take that role. What Gabe does, role, yeah. And to answer your question, I wouldn't pay him, just because I think he has too many of these upside games to not get a sizable contract. And for a team, I checked this today, they're currently 40-something million over the cap next year. You can't pay Gabe Davis what he's probably going to get on the open market and be able to have the team you want to have next year. So right this second, no, I don't pay.
Yeah, I mean, someone's going to throw him a Christian Kirk contract, which
Yeah.
doesn't look like a super bad contract. He's played well, but that's the thing.
Right?
Christian Kirk. Yeah. You just need one team to, watch the Chiefs game too many times. And, I'm sure the agent has that on speed dial, it's a keyboard shortcut. Hey, do you remember he had 4 touchdowns against the Chiefs? He doesn't have to type it out anymore. But no, he's a fine player, but, the Bills just don't have enough room to pay fine players great money.
How worried are you about Stefon Diggs? Because this is like 8, 9, 10 games where he hasn't. I think his last 100-yard game was the Giants game. I don't want to say worried. And look, when they needed a play from him, they got the third down, and Josh Allen was definitely targeting him a ton on the last drive. But if you have Stefon Diggs on a fantasy team, you've been very disappointed since like before Halloween.
I don't think it's too far to say that you're worried about Stefon Diggs. Is he dealing with something that we don't know about? Very possibly. You kind of researched extensively, I believe it was last offseason, age 30-year receivers, they start to fall off a little bit because, yeah, you can talk about double teams and shading productions, but it's not like he wasn't getting double teamed early in the season or shading coverage. It happened last year. It happened the year before that. And when's the last time we've, seen the wow Stefon Diggs, beautiful route, you can just play it looping on end because it's just, so great. The only kind of thing I could think about recently, I think, he had a decent play against the Jaguars, a couple. The Dolphins game was obviously a phenomenal
he had
outing.
the big one-handed catch at the end of the Cowboys game, or maybe not the end, like the third quarter. That was a ridiculous catch.
Yeah. I'm more talking about kind of like route running in general.
I got you. I know you're going.
And on the counterpoint of that, you talk about the crazy catches. The routine catches haven't been routine for him lately. So is he dealing with something? Is it, something to worry about? I think at this point, there's just so many, the proof is in your production. And right now he's not producing it. Certainly the numbers that he's happy and expects of himself.
Yeah. And I think if I'm the Bills, I would hope to get a big Stefon Diggs game in one of these last two, just to feel like, remember, that's the fastball. We've been spending a lot of time in this podcast and in others talking about finding the other thing. Well, that's your A thing. That's your number one thing. And it hasn't really been, number one thing for a while. Now the offense is successful, better. They only scored 24 points in this game. But I mean, and really, we get into that right now too. There's a lot of this game that looked like the old Ken Dorsey, turnovers, penalties, drives being stopped because the Bills were doing dumb things to themselves. And, it almost cost them another football game.
Yeah. That first half, that first quarter, I kind of jokingly said here at the office, oh, they have no rhythm. The rhythm is gone.
Yeah.
Well, it's the production, but, rhythm is production is rhythm, etc. But they just could not get anything going. Now, granted, they get the Gabe Davis touchdown. That's one play. Does that lead to the next drive being successful? I don't know. Were they just 2 successful drives near each other? But still, you start the game, punt. You're asking a lot on your defense. You're asking a lot of things to not go wrong. And when one thing goes wrong with Deontay Hardy fumbling a punt, now you're really behind the 8 ball, 10-0 against the team that, you wanted to put away early and kind of, just squash the hope out of them really quickly.
So they lost 2 fumbles in this game. This was the first game since the who'd they play before the Jets?
The Broncos.
This was the first game since the Broncos game, I think, where the Bills did not recover all the fumbles in the game. So they had been really fortunate for a bunch of weeks in a row. It might be actually another week beyond that. Let me look there. Cowboys, Chiefs, Eagles, Jets. Yeah, I think the Broncos was the last game. There was a fumble in the game and they didn't recover. They went 4 games in a row where whether they fumbled or the other team fumbled, the Bills recover them all. And fumbles tend to be, very fortunate. You get a good bounce. And in this game, they didn't get the good bounces. And you saw how easily, a game where we thought the Bills were just going to roll turns into a struggle because they didn't get a few bounces. And then that's how football goes. I mean, even though the Bills were a 12-point favorite, these are still all professionals. And, some of the Bills talked about it afterward. The Chargers still have professionals. They should be respected. And, they earn some respect. But I kind of set that all up to go to you now. Are you more or less confident? We'll do this in 2 parts. more or less confident about the Bills' playoff chances after this win. The stats say, the New York Times percentages say, obviously, it went up. They're like 75, 80%. But do you feel better about it from the eye test part?
I would say I feel exactly the same because this is a game that's in the Bills' repertoire. Like nothing surprised them. Nothing, this is a game that the Bills are. Did we really think that they became a perfect football team? They beat the Cowboys, they beat the Chiefs, they look feisty against the Eagles. Did we think that this wasn't in their back pocket? No, I don't think so. So if any, maybe it makes me feel a little better that they escaped with a win, but this is the reason why I posed to somebody, would you rather guarantee, give yourself a win against the Cowboys and try your luck at the Chargers or the Patriots, or vice versa, give yourself a win against the Chargers and Patriots and press your luck against the Cowboys? Just because it's 2 games and it's these Buffalo Bills and they do stupid things against bad teams and they allow them. So do you take the 2 gimme wins, even though, the Cowboys is whatever? And it just really doesn't change my thinking at all, to be honest, because, this is the Bills. And if anything, it's the Bills that wins at the end.
I think I'm a little more encouraged about their playoff chances after this game because they were able to pull it out. And obviously, the math says so. I know what you're saying, and you're not wrong about who the Bills are. I was still a little surprised that they had this in the bag after what they did to the Cowboys. And I shouldn't be surprised because this is how the NFL goes. They're going like this for years, but still, they were rolling. They had dominated Dallas. And this Chargers team with Easton Bleep and Stick, has no reason to hang with them. And I know, look, this is what happens when you lose the turnover battle 3-0. But I was still a little surprised that this game was in the bag. And that's why, although I'm more encouraged about their playoff chances, after the Cowboys game, I was like, wow, this is maybe a Super Bowl team. This is a team that go all the way. And they might still be that, but I got to back off of that after this game because, the offense looks like, in this game at least, they weren't as confident, dominant, successful, kind of struggled to get 24 points on the board. Defense made Easton Stick look respectable. This doesn't feel like, to me, a team that I want to ride with the Super Bowl, even though it was just really one game.
Yeah, and the discussion after the Cowboys game was, Super Bowl playoff expectations, and now suddenly, everybody was gifting them these 2 wins. Now they're going to play for the division because we know that the Dolphins are going to lose. We know that we're going to win these 2 games. Let's slow down. They still got to get to the playoffs. They lose that Dolphins game. The Bengals game helps, but they still need some help along the way. So I think we all just need to, calm down and just wait until they get there. And then we'll see if, Josh Allen can make some magic happen when, he has 3 games to do so.
That's what it'll be. It's probably going to be, can you handle your business next week? Can you, the Dolphins game to me kind of feels like a handle your business game. I just think the Bills are a better team, but we'll see. But can you do the things we expect you to do when it matters to get into the playoffs? And then when you get to the playoffs, can you put together 3 really good games to get to the Super Bowl? And it's going to probably take 3 really good games too to make that happen. But those are all questions for another day. You all set for tonight? We're done?
I think we're good. Yeah, I like Von Miller. He just keeps doing nothing. I almost think
there's no, if you want to bring that up, I'm going to be like, it's the same thing. Whatever I said last week, just like copy paste that into for this week.
Here's the thing that I like. Do you want to try something, do him different and, not really play him at all against the Patriots and hope that a week of rest gets him better? Because, he showed some flashes against the Chiefs. He had a bye week before that. Maybe, I don't know, give him a little rest, let Jonathan Kingsley run out against the Patriots. I don't know. Like, Albert Einstein insanity, same thing over and over again. Yeah. Like, try something different, maybe.
There's no idea that's a bad idea with him because of how unproductive he's been. But I don't think you want to, I don't think they're going to try anything that crazy because I just don't think there's where's the upside? What,
the guy in his place does literally anything.
Well, I mean, I guess that is the upside you're hoping for. I guess the better way to phrase it is, what is the realistic upside? And realistically, we, with the same way we know who Gabe Davis is, we know who 2023 Von Miller is. And frankly, he's a shell of himself. He'll be out there. He might command some attention because he's Von Miller. He occasionally will have a good push, but boy, this is a guy that's like a reserve pass rusher at best right now. And I don't see how that changes anytime before next training camp.
No, and it's just worth pointing out. I did want to mention one thing. My day on Twitter/X.
Yeah.
So when Leonard Fournette got into the game to return a kickoff, so I'm like, what are we doing here? Like, we got Deontay
I thought it was
Hardy.
a good point. I saw that. Yeah.
He hasn't been great, but Fournette hasn't returned a kick in his career. Like 5 minutes later, Deontay Hardy fumbles. So, of course, people respond to that. Later in the day, less important, there were two guys that kind of came free on Easton Stick. He was able to, avoid both of them. I tweet out, man, one of these times is going to be a big play. I think literally the very next play, it was the sack by Rasul Douglas on 3rd down. So there's that. And then the next one, this is probably the most funny. Alex Brasky of the Battaglia Davy News, he tweets out that he hadn't heard someone get a sideline warning since the Class D Section 5 championship game, which nobody on this podcast should know what I'm talking about because it was they're not listening. It was a really bad football game. There were 11 turnovers in that game, to which I replied, are we going to have a fumblelicious 4th quarter? The next snap is James Cook fumbling the ball. So I got crap on that too. So everything I said on Twitter came true, including on the first drive of the game when I said that field goals aren't going to beat the Bills, and they tried to with 5 field goals, but they didn't. So
yeah, that was a terrible field goal.
It really was.
First drive of the game, you're 5-9, you're an interim coach, and you're kicking threes from the 2-yard line against the Bills. I mean, have some gumption, Giff Smith. What is it, Giff or Giff? I don't know. And if we want to go into dumb story time, SoFi Stadium is terrible. Like I don't ever want to come back here. We have to come back here next year because the Bills play the Rams, but it's a bad vibe. They don't run the building well. And the dumb thing that I tweeted about that irritated me and I couldn't stop hearing for the whole game was the public address announcer for the Chargers for all 60 minutes, for every snap. He only announced what the Chargers did on the play. It was like the Bills didn't exist. The Washington Generals get more respect in Globetrotter games than the Bills got in an NFL game against the Chargers. And it's not important for anything, but like you're in the NFL. This is legit like pro sports. And you're only announcing your own team like you're some stupid like Hickville high school and you're only pumping your own guys up. Like grow the heck up, Chargers. How do you run an organization like this? And I'll tell you, once I tweeted about it, AJ, every single play, I had it in my ears what the public address announcer was saying, so I could hear every play that it was only the Chargers players that were announced.
So did the PA just not exist on like Bills touchdowns because they couldn't say that the Chargers did anything?
That's exactly what happened. Gabe Davis scores the first touchdown, and there was nothing. This is what you heard. You heard the tackler from the play before, and then there was no announcements until they went to break and did like, hey, Chargers fans, you can sign up for Tim Hortons if they get to, whatever dumb ads they have in the game. That's what they did.
Yeah, I mean, game day experience isn't one that, the Bills thrive amongst the rest. But hey, at least they announced the players for both teams.
They are better than the Chargers. And I don't remember what the Rams game day experience was, but, like when the Bills build their new stadium, ask the Rams guys what they did with SoFi, and then don't do any of that. Do everything the opposite way is what I would do.
Including having fans in your stadium, which
that's a whole different discussion. All right, we're done for the night. Thanks for everybody for watching and listening to Buffalo Game Day Recap. Remember, every week you can watch us on YouTube and on RochesterFirst.com. Listen wherever you get your podcasts. Next week, AJ and I will be. Is it me and you? Yeah, we're doing it right. Yeah, me and AJ will be. Bills Patriots. It is a rare and endangered species. A 1:00 game next week. So very excited for that. We will talk about the Bills' penultimate game of the season. For everybody watching and listening, hope you have a great holiday. Stay safe. Enjoy it. Bills fans, enjoy the win. Wasn't pretty, but you got your W, so you can wrap your presents in happiness over the weekend. We'll talk to you from next week. For AJ, I'm Thad. Thanks for watching and listening to Buffalo Game Day Recap.